Part 2 back course talking FF7. We're talking Remake Part 3 in this video. Specifically, we're talking about the release of the game, as in which consoles is it going to be on. Now, this is a conversation I've seen pop up a few times, at least in my comments, a little bit on social media, and more recently on, of course, our favorite website in the world, Reddit. People kind of wondering and a little bit concerned about what generation it's going to be on. Is it going to be on PS5? Is it going to be on PS6? I think for the majority of us, it's a pretty obvious answer, I would say. But I do think it's like kind of a fair concern, I guess, amongst the community, just because of the time frame for when the third game is going to come out, but also what we've seen them do with the Remake project before, right? Remake was on PS4, and then the DLC that came out the next year was PS5 only, and obviously Rebirth is PS5 only. So in terms of when the PlayStation 6 itself is coming out, we obviously don't know a damn thing right now, and it's hopefully still years away at this point. But if you look at like the history of the release of the PlayStation consoles themselves, it's always 6 to 7 years between. The original came out in '94 in Japan, and the PlayStation 2 came out in 2000, and then the PlayStation 3 came out in 2006. So that's like 6 years, and then 6 years again. The PS4 came out in 2013, which is 7 years, and then obviously the PlayStation 5 came out in 2020, which is again 7 years. If we're just basing it off the entire history of the consoles themselves, it's 6 to 7 years, right? So that puts the PS6 coming out in either 2026 or 2027. Now, the more recent generations, you know, PS3 to PS4 and PS4 to PS5, have been 7 years. So I don't know that 2026 is likely. Obviously not impossible. So the more likely year would be 2027 if we're sticking with the 6 to 7 year time frame. In fact, if the PlayStation 6 did come out in like 2028 or later, it'd be the longest it's ever taken for the next generation to release or whatever, right? So it'd be kind of interesting to see what they do exactly with the PlayStation 6. There's a damn moth right there. My guy out. He's just vibing. How back to a potential 2027 release window for the PlayStation 6. That's obviously the year that we're hoping and expecting for the third game to come out. We've been told by the devs that it should take hopefully about 3 years, the same that it took roughly for Rebirth, which would obviously put us in the year 2027. It's also an anniversary year for the original FF7, so it's like the perfect way to like end the trilogy. Like, here's the third part, the last part, coming out the same, 30 years after the original. Like, it all kind of writes itself. So it's pretty decent odds that we're having the third remake game come out the same year that the next generation of consoles is going to come out. So I can kind of see where people are wondering, kind of concerned, because it's going to take a long time, right? We're going to be pretty much all the way through the theoretical life cycle of the PS5 by the time the third game comes out. But where the answer to this conversation, for me at least, is kind of obvious, is that they're already developing the third game right now, as we're talking, right? We've had like literal dev updates of them, like, working on the Highwind and things like that. They're making it for the PS5. Like, that's very obvious. Unless for some reason they're getting like a super, super early dev kit for the PS6. There's no way they're using that right now. But even if for some reason they were getting dev kits for the PS6 like next year or the year after that, we'd still be like pretty far into development for the third game. And we've seen that with like the Yuffie DLC, for example, they, in a way, sort of like made that to specifically test making shit for the PS5, right? For the new console generation. And that's obviously not going to happen here. We're not going to get like a PS6 only DLC before we get to the third part, right? It's not a thing. So they wouldn't switch like mid-development on the third game to a brand new console generation they've not practiced on yet. We did a whole video talking about Hamaguchi being kind of like hesitant to switch fucking engines, much less console generations. The only way this conversation is even like different for me is if we potentially got the PS6 earlier than expected. Like, just, we're speaking purely hypothetical here. But if the PS6 were to come out next year, for example, then we're like, years away from the release of the third part. It's like, okay, maybe there's a possibility now. Maybe that means they've had a PS6 dev kit for a little while now and they've been working on it, and maybe there's that possibility. And I don't expect that to happen because, as we talked about previously in the video, it's taken like longer as time has gone on, right? 6, 6, and then 7, 7. So I'm thinking at least 7 years, probably minimum, until we get the next console generation. But also, like, it's taken them kind of a long time here to get to like the PS5 Pro, right? Like, it took them, I think, like 3 years for the PS4 Pro to come out, and we're already like getting up to like 4 years into the life cycle of the PS5, and we still haven't got that yet. I'm just purely looking at timeframes for stuff like that. I don't know, like, behind the scenes shit in terms of like what's been going on with the PS5 Pro, if there's a reason it's taking a little bit longer. But yeah, like, we're not even to like the enhanced version of the PS5 yet, so I don't expect the PS6 early. The obvious benefit of them putting the third game on the PS5 means they can do an enhanced version on the PS6, similar to what they did with Remake, right? Remake came out on PS4, you got the enhanced version integrated on the PS5, and they can do the same thing with probably Rebirth and also the third game. And of course, you could take all three of the games. They can even do like an enhanced version of Remake on the PS6. Actually, that'd be kind of interesting. I don't know if we need that, unless they're like going to add some sort of new shit to it. But maybe they just upscale the graphics even more. I don't know. People have said they can like double dip, right? They can sell everything on the PS5, and then you can do like an enhanced version of sorts, or the trilogy all packaged together for the PlayStation 6 as well. But even besides everything else we talked about in this video so far, I don't think they would go the route of making one of the games in the trilogy like next-gen exclusive again, like they did with Rebirth. because it obviously hurt Rebirth to a certain degree. Because when it came to like Remake itself, the first game of the trilogy wasn't even like this crazy, overwhelming success where it's selling like 10, 20 million copies, right? It took them like a couple of years to sell like 7 million, which isn't bad. It's not bad by any stretch. But also, when Rebirth came out, we know that Rebirth isn't a failure, but it certainly wasn't this overwhelming success either. It's only sold like probably a couple million, maybe. If you were to go the route of making like, you know, the third game of the trilogy, PlayStation 6 exclusive, around the launch of the PlayStation 6, it obviously would not sell very well. This video is pretty much a video, just kind of a chill discussion video today, I suppose. I think it's, for a lot of us, like I said, it's a relatively obvious question and answer here for what's going on. I think it's, you know, pretty clear that it's coming to the PS5. Like, I do think it is a fair question and concern for people to have, just because we've seen them hop generations in the middle of the trilogy before, and we had, you know, DLC come out for the first game, but it was next-gen exclusive, so it was like kind of frustrating. So like, I totally get it. I can tell you this much though: if by chance, somehow, some way, the third game was like PlayStation 6 exclusive, I'm gonna be pissed. They gotta buy another fucking console to play this damn trilogy. I bought a PS4 to play fucking Remake. Bought this damn PS5 that's right here to play fucking Rebirth. And I gotta buy another fucking console to play the third game. I'm gonna do it. I'll be fucking mad about it though. Anyways, my dudes, that's the video. Subscribe to the channel if you guys are new. Social networks in the description below. Follow me on Twitter, @DaveYT. That's it.
Used to care what people thought, but now I care more, and nobody out here's got it figured out. So therefore, I've lost all hope of a happy ending, depending on whether or not it's worth it. So insecure, no one's perfect. We spend it with no shame. We blow that like Coltrane. We in here like Low Gain, or leave it like Cobain.